Hello again. Okay, in order that we don't get too confused or have too much information to deal with at one time, and I have begun the floor planning, but first I finished building the landscape. And I felt this was important not just from an architectural standpoint, but in order to make the house fit into where it's going to be situated, but also, and more importantly and more functionally, to be able to take advantage of the land that we can take advantage of given what we're trying to accomplish. So there were a number of things I wanted to cover in this film, and questions and so forth, further information I need from you before we begin to deal with the floor planning.
My Lord, a snapping turtle. Wow.
But building the landscape, particularly back here, I felt was really important, so that whatever we put back here interfaces as well as it can with this rising hill to the west. And so this is where I was before I wanted to add in the dog runs and some of the other necessary structures like the tanks and the septic and that sort of thing, so that we can work around them when it's possible, wherever possible, probably. So this was after using the topographical maps and the photographs that you sent and the films you sent and the information I could gather from what I had. This is what I put together to at least represent something close enough to what we have, including these dog fences, which presumably will stay whenever that's possible. And I just got to, can I just say that this here layout, what you got going here, this resembles or looks an awful lot like a shooting iron of days gone by. So this was the landscape before I made a few final adjustments, which I made during the making of this film, with regard to where that trench or that drainage ditch is located. But before I did that, I adjusted this garage and did a few of the other things according to the dimensions you had given me. So I'm curious how much space you have here, just so that that can be planned for accordingly. And so this is what we had been working with, kind of with your plan and the garage. I don't know where these dimensions came from, but I think from the overviews or something like that. But now I have adjusted that garage to reflect what is actually and truly happening. But there are additional things that I'm going to want information from you to further refine what we've got so far here. These will be mentioned again probably in this film, but among them, we presume this fence is going to stay where it is, and hopefully this stays where it is, and obviously the septic stays where it is. But I'm curious, I couldn't tell from any of the photographs or films where this fence goes, and I don't even know if I have it right here. But I'd like to refine that a little better, just so I know where that fence goes and ends back here. This I'm showing is your propane, and then those are the two lids to the septic tank over there. I couldn't tell from the film if this slab of cement stretches all the way to the end, but I would want the dimensions of that, as well as it looks like there's a step down out of that door from that garage. How far down that step is that 4 inches or 6 inches or what? Next, I worked with this plot plan, because I knew we were going to be dealing with some sort of a setback requirement from this road down here. And this is the official plot plan, and that probably actually will be good enough for my use. I don't know what these certain dimensions, we don't know. This one must be shown somewhere near this in the book. This dimension down here, L2, L1, C1, those are not named. But all this, the rest of this is sized according to what the surveyor has shown. All these lines are correct in terms of their length, but these are guesses, and the interior of this is equaling 1.62 acres. So I'm pretty sure we have these where they belong. Now I drew my road in here based on several of the, photo overlays. This is from the surveyor, and he shows, if you can see this here, that's where he's showing apparently your house is or was. But according to our dimensions, we are closer to this, because this is our slab here, and this is that adjusted slab, 30 feet by 62 something. And these were your dimensions to the roadway, to the actual roadway. Our roadway that I have drawn in there, which is immaterial, it's just for use, is the gray lines down here. But based on those dimensions that you took, I shifted this map a little bit off of our road to make it, at least this, approach something close to what you have there. It's immaterial, it's only a couple feet, but it would be good to know exactly what kind of room we have to work with. And you can see there's our slab lined up with the back of the existing garage, and that does not line up with the surveyor's work, because there's the road overlay. But I will be double checking some things with the Madison County zoning people with regard to these setback requirements and what it's going to be, because the code says you're residential agriculture, AR or RA, and they want 40 feet from the Department of Transportation maintenance, and I don't know if they mean that 40 feet from this 20-foot width of that street, and we haven't really measured that street. That'd be another dimension. It would be helpful to have the exact width of that street, because we can use the center line to establish these setback requirements. But assuming, I don't think it's going to be from the property line. If it is, that becomes our setback line there. We could build all the way up to there if we didn't have other things that were complicating that. Otherwise, if it's from the edge of the street, then it's back there further. This next section is particularly boring, but I would like you to confirm some of these dimensions. These are based upon that graph paper diagram you sent over. So some of this stuff I'd like to, this I think is accurate, but if you could just okay that. And I don't know a couple things. I assume this is a concrete tank. It'd be nice to know its capacity, A, and B, I'm assuming because of the way the lids are that it's oriented this way. The same with this LP tank. It'll be nice to know its capacity so we know its size and its orientation, and then what the center is to that lid or whatever kind of access point you have, which we assume is the center of that buried tank. Additionally, you showed this kind of here from the graph paper. I came up with about 18 feet to where that is. I would like that to be known exactly as well from the edge of that slab in one direction or the other. Also, with regard to the septic system, I would like you to firm up whatever this diagram consists of to as accurate as possible, so we know exactly where these things are, and if they're as you showed, with one trunk coming off and then these four, if you know the lengths of those and really how close they're coming to the corner of that existing slab, would be good to know. And do they come this way? They turn? Anything like that that you know would be definitely needed. So yeah, some sort of diagram like this but with dimensions probably is needed. It's needed. A few more things yet with this rear yard area. For one thing, this is that photo overlay that I've been working with, and this is your old deck here. I think that's about 14 by 14 perhaps. But again, there's that slab with like the dimensions. That shows, if that was the case, where I showed that meter, which is based on that diagram, which showed it kind of here, that shows it coming either underneath that deck. So definitely we want to firm that up if that is the case. I kind of have it like that, just horsing around. Another thing before I forget that I'd like to confirm is the total length north to south of that existing slab. Some additional things we will want besides these mechanical issues here, or these three mechanical issues, is I would like to get this fence located, as I mentioned earlier. You had said it became 25 out here, and so I assume it can't, at this angle, which is based on the photographs and various things that way, doesn't look like it can go much further than this. But I'd like to finish the diagram of this fencing, including any gates in it. Now this these red lines, and this is, it's not that defined, but I'm using 3 foot wide as an indicator for that drainage ditch. Now if you can further describe that, it would be good. If you could tell me, is it a foot deep across 4 feet or whatever, but I would like to know that. But that much aside, using these red lines as a representation of that, I would like to firm up where its edge begins, and you'll just have to figure out kind of where its center is and then where its edge is, or some sort of reliable and consistent rubric. Perhaps it's to the edge of the walking space. Maybe that's the best way to do that, is give me to the edge of the walking space here at the corner of this slab, or perhaps, or in addition to it, the rubric might be to the where it begins to sharply fall off. Out as far as it possibly can, and definitely from here to here, there, and just anything you can use, give me to firm that up, just so that we know what we're working with back there. And I'm widening it out now so that you can describe that trench a little bit further, or at least all the way over to the corner of the garage, what is happening over there. So I had put that trench in based on guessing from the photograph overlay, but I think what I was looking at was the edge of the trench and not the center of the trench. So based on a number of other considerations, as well as I already didn't have that trench aligned, but I left the fence where it was, but because that seemed to be pretty accurate according to what you gave me, 21 feet from the corner of the house to here, and then I just followed the angle on the photo overlay. But that trench needed moved in, so I'm assuming that this fence, the trench is on the inside of the fence, is the upshot of that move there. And then that is just the, the gravel or whatever kind of hard scrabble base that comes down through there. With the garage adjustment, and really I was trying to get these roofs to represent, and I think this is probably the most accurate, the one that maybe we should work with, because I certainly don't think it's that one or that one. But let me know if you have a preference between those in terms of what you're looking at as a representation. And this next section is just running through a few of these different little changes, including altering the size of the garage to reflect what's happening. This is where we were somewhere in the last film. I finally got rid of that white in the roof. I guess it has a certain appeal to it, but you can see what kind of change that has. I like this for the representation of the roof the best. And here's a different way to do these shack shutters for these wider windows. Now these are actually 18 inches wide, half the width of these windows, and with the two 5.5 inch wide boards. And an alternative way to do that wide shutter that way is to do it, with smaller slats at the margins. Make a long story short. And that's all this is the roof and horsing around with those shutters a little bit. And very finally in this, I thought this one's neck was a little long. Not that you're going to use these, but I thought this one's neck was a little bit long. So I have shortened it up some. Additionally, as already mentioned earlier, this shows a different way to treat windows that are a little wider. And this one's 18 inches wide, so this on one side of a window can cover an 18-inch wide window, but it can also be used as I showed you at the end, but this is what the construction of it is where the slats on the ends are less wide, because we really can't have a middle slat because his body is too wide and there'd be nothing to carry that middle slat, or her body is too wide, which is going to be true for any design, the tree or acorn or whatever you were to use. And unless you had 3 to 5 cutouts, smaller ones, through various slats. Additionally, with these shorter shutters, I have reduced the cross pieces to 3.5 inches high from 5 inches wide. All of which is just to demonstrate this is a wide enough variety in which to go that you can have these however and wherever you like on the house. And that is definitely finally it for this film, and I'm back to the floor planning, and I'm sure you'll have something by the end of the weekend for sure. Just to, there's going to be some major break points, dichotomies, and we'll solve those dichotomies as quickly as possible, and the rest will be easy. In terms of the construction drawings, I'm keeping it as simple as possible, so those should be able to be assembled, in no more than a week after we arrive at something that's close to what we want. You can continue to alter things and we can continue to submit revisions, but we would be A, in the permit queue, and B, in Roy's building queue. So hopefully that's enough information and not too much for now. I'll be in touch. Thank you.